The Nuts and Bolts of Writing, Season 2, a podcast where we talk about literature, the ins and outs of writing, and how to actually start writing. Hi, everyone. Today, it's just me, Fortunus Games, the host of this podcast. Today, I'll be reviewing a book that I read last year, A Marker to Measure Drift by Alexander Maksik. I found it on discount through Chapters Indigo back in October 2022 and couldn't believe I only had to pay $4.99 for such a great book. Here's how I reviewed A Marker to Measure Drift by Alexander Maksik on Goodreads last year. If you want to follow me on Goodreads, a link is in the description. This review is also on my Substack and Medium. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars back then. Alexander Maksik's A Marker to Measure Drift is a fascinating and engrossing look into the life of a Liberian refugee, Jacqueline. After a traumatic event in her home country, Jacqueline finds herself wandering throughout Europe. She eventually finds herself in Greece, where she is homeless and hungry. However, her focus on survival helps her to appreciate the minutiae of life. Once she finds a cave for shelter, builds a mattress out of trash, and starts earning money by giving massages to tourists, memories from her past life start flooding back, threatening to overwhelm her. Overall, this was an excellent book. Jacqueline is a realistic and likable character who makes us care about her. We feel her hunger and desperation as she looks for a way to survive in Greece. We also feel her longing for companionship. Many times, people want to get closer to her and get to know her more, but she usually self sabotages and makes an excuse to distance herself from them. The reason? The more normal she becomes, the more she remembers and thinks about the traumatic events that took her family away from her. The first 60 or so pages were excellent. The descriptions of Greece, Jacqueline's thoughts, her memories of her family, and the people around her were wonderfully written. However, the quote unquote pattern of Jacqueline looking for food, people to give massages to, and sort of befriending people before disappearing started becoming repetitive in the middle of the book. I think Maxick should have made the middle part shorter because I didn't see the point of some of the stuff there. As for the ending, it was somewhat predictable but powerful. Jacqueline finally opens up to a friendly waitress, and she finally told her and the audience her entire story. Her parents and sister had been brutally killed before her eyes during the Liberian Civil War. It could have been more powerful, though, if the novel was shorter overall and there were fewer hints about what had happened to her family. Also, some people prefer open endings, but I personally didn't really like it. After telling the story to the waitress, the book ends on a note where Jacqueline walks back to her mattress made of trash and decides whether she wants to stay in the Greek tourist town or go to another place. I wish she was taken in by the waitress. Overall, a good read. I would have given it 5 stars if it were more streamlined and less repetitive. And that's the end of my review from last year. What do I think of the book now that a year has passed since I read it? I still think it's a good work. I love how realistic and relatable Jacqueline is, and the descriptions of her memories and experiences as a refugee are heart-rending. However, in light of all the interviews we've done on this podcast for season 2, I think this book could have been paced better, as I said previously. As many of our interviewees have discussed, brevity is important, as is readability. Unfortunately, after the first 40 or so pages, the book felt repetitive. It was mostly just Jacqueline doing the same thing or similar things over and over again, such as looking for food or giving tourists massages for low prices so she can buy food. I also thought the book was too long. The main reason why Maxick made this book so long was to hide Jacqueline's memories of how her family died until the very end. However, we already know, based on some of her memories, what had happened. So it wasn't surprising when she finally revealed the truth. What she reveals at the end of the book is basically just a more detailed version of events that we already suspect have happened based on all of the recollections and nightmares and quotations she sprinkles throughout the book. This format could have worked better if the book was a novella rather than a novel. As it stands, this book feels too meandering. All in all, I still think this is a good read, but I think I would give it 3 or 3.5 out of 5 stars rather than 4 out of 5 stars now because I'm more judgmental towards meandering works in 2023 than I was back in 2022.